Not, I guess the library was one of the last things that I thought about. I mean, which is stupid because it probably should have been one of the first things that I thought about, but I didn't. And so, um, I'm going to bring Allison into this because, we're fighting. I don't even know how to like explain what we're fighting. I never thought in Texas this would be as big of an issue. And I think it's huge. And I don't know if it's maybe just because, Allison, there are so many of us moms that are onto this, or if it's just because, it's Texas and we assume, wrongfully so, that it's conservative. Um, what do you think about that?
I think, I know when I started researching critical race theory, Marxism, socialism, and all the tenets thereof, um, starting about a year and a half ago, as our other school started going down that road. Um, Education is the forefront of how they make headway into a country. So they go straight to the advanced institutions and they start introducing these concepts. They're always through the back door, through in seemingly innocuous ways. Um, the concern is what was being predicted was this is not just going to stay in advanced education, college, and on up. It's going to get down into K through 12. So in my research, I wrote a 40-page research paper on all of this. Um, I found that, that was the next battlefront. And that's exactly what I found when we got to the ISD. They're, they've already made a lot of headway into our libraries. One of the ways that they get at the children is through their sexuality, obviously, and through parental alienation. So in communism, you always find the communist system dividing the children from their parents, taking the children away from their parents. So when you see those hallmarks of the reduction of parental authority or parental access, it's always like the frog in cold water. The enemy is more than happy to go very, very slow. He wants to go slow so that we don't detect what he's doing until it's too late. And honestly, this next generation is so steeped in depravity. It's been a shock to my system. So the parental alienation aspect really came full bore through COVID. The enemy made a ton of headway, kick, totally kicking parents out of schools. I could not get into our Christian school basically for 2 years. And that, you know, there's an implicit trust there. But after a while, I was like, this is really a cause for concern. And then I knew parents were certainly locked out of public schools. And that's been the case. We can't get into the libraries. We I have no idea what's going on in Wakeland. There's nothing for parents to be involved with within the school. And all these rules, all the security, et cetera, et cetera. It may not be the individual administrator's intention to alienate the parents, but there certainly is a system-wide um, agenda at work to divide parents from their children, separate them. So if you're turning over your kids to the authorities for 9 to 11 hours a day, where other people are their primary influence, and the parent is relegated to, maybe an hour a day, um, I see this as a huge, huge problem. We've already lost. If that's if our authority and influence over our children has been diminished to that extent, including the libraries, we have
Yep.
no idea what's in those libraries until parents roll up their sleeves and spend an ungodly amount of time researching this stuff, which nobody has the time to do except for us mama bears who have, you know, the good fortune of not having to work a full-time job and raise a family. So we're out there doing this work, but there's very few of us who have the luxury of being able to do this.
So I am a tinfoil hat wearer, and I love to go down rabbit holes and conspiracy
Amen,
theories.
sister.
And I'll tell you this, I do find it very interesting when you look at when the whole family dynamic started to break and, women were going back to work and, I started to look at just where our education system was going. And it's very interesting to me that, it has been slow, although progressive. It's been kind of slow with how they've done this. But you are exactly right. There are a lot of people that do not have the time, and they know this, that do not have the time to sit down and do what, quite frankly, I'm not going to put myself in this. I'm going to put you guys, but this little group of women that I am a part of that have spent hours and hours and hours and hours researching this, and someone like Dan, and they rely on that, and I think that's really unfortunate, but that's where we're at. So, and this is, even if you're not a parent yet, or you're never going to be a parent, if you have just kids in your family, this is very important to listen to, because I will tell you this, 2020 was the best and worst year. It was awful for so many regards, but it was amazing in others, because it opened a lot of these moms' eyes, because we were now sitting at a table with children and looking at what they were and were not learning. And I will tell you this, it was incredibly shocking. And it was part of the reason that I had an awakening, if you will. So, Dan, what are you seeing in the schools now? Because I'll tell you this, today, my older twins just turned 23. So I have actually been involved in the public education system since 2003. And I haven't had a break. And I can tell you that it has changed dramatically in that window of time. So what are you seeing in the libraries today, and what educators and librarians, it's almost like they're inviting this in and they want this. But what have you seen over your years that's changed as to where we are now?
Well, one of the more recent things is that the American Library Association has bragged to the Biden White House, then incoming Biden White House, that librarians are better than teachers at pushing critical race theory on students, because librarians have the students for years, whereas teachers only have them for a year and a class. So the American Library Association felt good enough to brag about how librarians are better indoctrinators than teachers are. And we already know how really good teachers are at indoctrinating people. Well, now here's the American Library Association bragging that they can do this, and the new incoming president-elect of the American Library Association is an avowed Marxist who says, I can't wait to bring this Marxism and wield our power, our collective power, in the American Library Association. They don't even hide it anymore. It's right out in the open. It's been creeping up for years. The media, everybody ignores it. I've been reporting this. Media will ignore this. Everybody assumes that librarians are angels who had never hurt a fly, and they brag about this. And they even in their during National Library Week about 2 weeks ago, they released their latest State of the Libraries report, in which they talked about how high of an opinion people have of librarians and how they can use that. Well, they do. And they will indoctrinate your children with CRT, or with drag queen story hour, or with inappropriate sexual material, like a boy giving a BJ to a man, forgive me, but there it is in genderqueer. And they're defending this now. And they have a Marxist leader now. This is why we need to get on the boards. We need to get on the library boards and the school boards to turn this around.
Yep.
There's no stopping these people. They have one goal. It's the children. This started over 50 years ago when a woman named Judith Krug, who was a board member at the ACLU of Illinois, joined the American Library Association. I think she might have been working at both places at the same time for a short period of time. She's the one who single-handedly changed how librarians would approach children. No longer would they keep them from inappropriate material. Now they'd, push it on them and leave it up to the parents to stop it while misleading the parents and otherwise blocking them wherever they can. She has trained librarians, for example, that librarians are not lawyers, therefore they cannot determine what is child pornography. Therefore, they never see child pornography.
But
Anybody?
Can I ask
Yes.
you a question to that?
Yeah.
So in our mom group, we share what we find. And yes, a lot of it is incredibly explicit. I don't feel like I can share that. At least I know that I couldn't share some stuff on our YouTube podcast channel due to the nature. So I can't have that in my house, and I can't share that, if you will, on the internet. But my children are allowed to see it in their library. That is pretty much what's happening. Am I wrong or am I right? Because I feel like that's what people aren't understanding. Like, I could go to jail for what is in our children's libraries if I owned it as an adult.
It didn't used to be this bad. Something happened recently. Yeah, I've been studying them. I told you for a long time.
Barack
They didn't
Obama
always have.
happened.
Well, okay, it's possible. They didn't, but something. But you know what? The American Library Association is directly responsible for this because, for example, you may have seen some newspaper articles. I'm actually writing a story about this right now. I didn't get it out in time to tell you all. Here it is. But I'm working on it. The American Library Association is directly responsible for this when even the authors themselves admit that they wrote this book. Genderqueer, for example, the author, she wrote it for adults. She didn't think it would have a big audience, but the American Library Association saw it and decided that they would give it an award for school children. And that's when the book took off. And if it wasn't for the American Library, and the American Library Association does this repeatedly, and it's not just school libraries. A public library, for example, had child pornography that they were covering up, and it took years to get them to admit to it. They finally did admit to it. And the American Library Association saw that library got an award for intellectual freedom. So it's the American Library Association that finds this stuff somehow, gives it awards, and those awards, and now somebody else on my timeline told me that's exactly what my school librarian told me. Why they had genderqueer in their schools, because it won 2 awards from the American Library Association. So there you go. It's an award-winning book all of a sudden, and now it's in your school. It's because of these librarians. It's because of this ACLU woman who joined ALA and changed it from within for 50 years, over 50 years ago. This is why. So it's just like. So this is why this is happening. This is why we're here now, and the media won't cover it either. The media, like the New York Times, just wrote an article about how Genderqueer is a wonderful book for kids who are questioning their whatever. No, it's not. No child should be seeing a boy giving a blowjob to a man. No child should be seeing kink.com written down so they can go and look it up like Jenny, like that song 8675309, whatever that was, and everybody called that number. That's because that's what people do. That's why they put it in the book. That's what they want kids to see. They want them to see kink.com. They want them to see the sexuality that screws them up, and the media won't cover it. And the media repeats what the American Library Association says, like they're the god of the universe.
Can I butt in here?
No, not yet. Not yet. I have these speakers for a reason. So
I broke Genderqueer on the internet. I'd like to say something, please.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
in the nest, by the way.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, you're fine. Go ahead. No, I did read that. I
Okay.
actually just retweeted that.
Yeah, I am Texas Morning Kofifi. I am the person that broke genderqueer back in October that Libs of TikTok picked up. And
How did
here
you
in
find
Keller,
it? Oh,
excuse me?
you're in Keller.
I'm in Keller ISD.
Aha, good to
I
know.
am in the root of all of
Here
this.
we go. Yes, you are.
I am, and 3 of my girlfriends have been doing this for a long, long time. And I have to say, we have these book challenge committees that are stacked with 6 administrators, librarians, and counselors, and 2 parents. And we have not won one challenge committee because of leftist indoctrination into these teachers and counselors. And we have proof that they are training them to say, oh, but there's one child that needs it. There's one child. So we're 2 parents sitting in these meetings, and we have these 6 district administrators telling us that it's like a script. We have open records requests into the Attorney General's office right now, waiting to come back to try to figure out how they are recruiting these people to be on these committees, like librarians, counselors, whatever.
Well, and that's
Okay.
interesting you say that. And Allison, actually, we could attest to this. I mean, we were just at a meeting, 2 weeks ago? And I mean, everything she's saying is totally true. Like, they are literally pushing the parents out. They're not giving us any answers. We sent all these requests. I mean, we're pretty much doing the same thing, and we are getting absolutely nowhere. So, you know what? It's all, it's Texas.
Hey, Summer, I just wanted to butt in here real quick because I've invited her several times. If you look at her bio, it's @by California, hello Texas. So share a little bit with us on that, please.
Are you from California too?
Yes, I am a Marine Corps wife of a Special Forces Operations Marine who retired, and we decided to come to Texas for freedom. And we came here trusting everything. And then I found out last year during an election for a school board member that there was CRT in our schools.
Yep.
And it came in through the SEL department. And that's where this all started. And then we started looking at Facebook posts coming up through Keller ISD teachers, their Amazon wish lists, and the books that they wanted. And it was like, wait a minute, hold on. You're asking for all these CRT infused books? We have exposed SEL in Keller. The whole department has been shut down. The website has been taken down. You have to come together wherever you are. Find patriots, people, like-minded people, and come together, build a group. We have a Facebook group with only 2,000 members, but we are powerful.
Yeah, I mean,
they took genderqueer off of the shelves, found out where it was within 20 minutes of us posting that we found it.
Yeah, Frisco's not that. We're not there yet.
Yeah, you guys, I've been speaking to moms in Round Rock. Okay, you guys need to come together. This is not a game anymore. They are after your children. They will go after your children. Librarians. I sat in a meeting, a committee meeting about a book. I had a librarian tell me, I had to sign an NDA though. Let me tell you, I had to sign an NDA before I went to that meeting. She told me that she would give a suicidal teen a book about suicide so that he could feel himself. These people are evil. You need to expose it. You need to get your Sun Tzu inside of you and build a coalition of people. This is pure evil that is going on here. And I never, ever thought it would happen here in Texas.
I agree.
That's all I have to say.
I'm from California, and I feel the same exact way. I am shocked. I'm disgusted. And I am, well, up until, the midterms, we were doing everything we could to get Abbott out because he's part of this problem, but it's more than that. And here's what's also very interesting is that you don't think of the libraries or the librarians as being the enemy. They have been portrayed a certain way. And all of a sudden, I am realizing, like the librarian at my daughter's school, the most liberal person that I know of at that school. I find that very interesting. And I am no longer allowed to go in there. But here's the thing, that we as moms and dads and just as people, because I said this earlier and I will say it again, you do not have to have children, nor should you to care about what these kids are learning, because these kids are the future. They're the ones that are going to be making decisions for all of us later in life. And they are being forced, if you will, to learn this shit. And it's so against so many parents. But you're right, we have to come together. And that is why I think spaces like this and us talking about it, and we have to be a lot bolder than we are, because the thing is that they do have our children's attention for a large amount of time every single day, and they're sponges.
They are. And let me tell you one thing, okay? This has to be a district-led effort. You cannot, and I love Moms for Liberty, they're great, but they're county-wide, okay? Here in Tarrant, I get messages from Moms for Liberty, and they're like, come join us in Arlington. You know what? My heart's not in Arlington. I've got my own fight. I've got my own open records requests I have to deal with here in Keller. Start it local. It has to be extremely local, or else it doesn't work. So Frisco, McKinney, okay, Arlington, start your own groups. Keller, look what Southlake did, okay? You have to start local because that is where your heart is. So start getting together, meeting like-minded people, going on to every single Facebook post, Twitter post, Twitter, search your names of your school boards, start friending people, doing what you can, and build an army.
I am proud to say that I am part of an army here in Frisco.
Good.
And Allison, who's another speaker, the reason I asked her to come and speak is because she is kind of helping lead this, and they're the reason that I got involved. And I think that for us, and Allison, you can chime in on this, I think that we have a good group of women and parents that are fighting this. To the point where the mayor of McKinney is now, giving his opinions on on us and calling us a lot of not so good things.
Summer?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask these wonderful warrior ladies their advice on something. I'm sure you've seen this in Keller and wherever else you guys are. When we come up to confront the administrators and the board, I don't know how else to describe this, but it's like they're in a delusion, a woke delusion of doublespeak, of groupthink, of shiny happy people, of we love our teachers, or we love our librarians. You must not go on social media and say anything bad or challenging of the school district. It's a very weird, it's almost like you can see those swirly circles in their eyes. And no matter what you say, which is logical, clear, intelligent thinking, critical analysis, critical thinking, independent thinking, this is cogent thinking and cogent analysis. And it's based in decency and morality that nobody really could argue with. And when you get these people in one-on-one conversations, like the board members or the administrators, they all agree. They all don't want porn in the libraries, they say. I think some of them mean it. Some of them maybe not so much. But when they get up there on the platform and they're in decision-making mode, they become very drone-like. They defend their decisions. They defend freedom of speech. The director of the library was up there as they were allocating $387,000 of emergency funds to hire 4 to 6 more librarians to weed the library after we've been fighting this for a year. Their solution was to allocate $387,000 to hire more staff that wouldn't actually start the weeding process for another 6 months. Okay. Versus like a SWAT team, throw that money at a SWAT team and just get it all out right now. Anyway, another example is Dr. Waldrop, our superintendent. I emailed him with a large CC list of a lot of community leaders. Why in the world are our librarians attending? I think it's the Texas Library Association conference, where
it's up in the nest.
Drag queens and all of this present and doing all of these sessions, which are perverse and have no business anywhere near a public library that's serving minor children. I challenged him all of that. And he, again, the drone with the swirly circles in the eyes, he said, well, we don't force them to attend any particular sessions. They can attend whatever they want to. And that was his answer. I'm like, I don't understand why you are answering me in this neutral, passive tone when a logical, normal, moral response would be, I thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will go handle this and set a policy in place where none of our FISD staff is allowed to attend those sessions at that conference. By the way, another thing I want to point out is that in my research on how does socialism take over society, it's through these side associations. It's always through the side associations, not necessarily the main school. They don't necessarily come up with these ideas. They are getting indoctrinated by these associations. So the teachers, the administrators, the board go off and they get trained by these associations. They get indoctrinated. They get seduced, honestly, by these ideologies, and then they come back and they implement it in the schools. So really the kind of the source of the indoctrination is coming through these toxic socialist organizations and associations like the ALA, like in the private school, Christian private school arena. There is a bunch of them. And all of our private Christian school teachers, administrators, and board members are attending those association conferences where they're getting indoctrinated into socialism. And then they come back and they implement it in the schools.
Yes. Yes. Another one you need to watch out for is ASCA. Okay. Yes. If you even just go on Twitter and just search ASCA, the American School Counselor Association, this is happening. And if you look on Twitter, you will see all the things that they discussed last year. And ASCA is horrible. Okay. TXLA is horrible. Our superintendent, we found out about it. I found out about it through an author who is trying to make children's books, like pure children's books, but she is not being picked up by publishers because publishers want things more spicy.
Yeah.
Okay. So she told me about this. I broke it on Twitter and it turned into a big firestorm here in Keller. We found that they spent here in Keller $16,000 for membership fees for our librarians to go and have a year-long membership and to send our librarians there. Okay. Not good. I emailed our super. Our super said, hey, well, we already committed and we can't get a refund. So yeah, they're just going to go. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is why school board elections are the most important elections. Right now here in Keller, we have 3 seats up. We have 3 with Dr. Charles Rancleve, who was elected last year, who ran against a BLM supporter. We will have 4. We will have the majority. We will South Lake Keller. And that is our goal.
Yes.
Because right now, this is what needs to happen. And everybody else needs to have the same fire in their bellies to find good candidates. Okay. You can't find candidates for a school board that haven't voted, or they homeschool, or their voting record says that they haven't voted in this and that. You need to come together locally. We started the Keller ISD Family Alliance PAC, okay, based off of the South Lake PAC. And we have donations coming in. We do not support the candidates financially. We do not pay for anything, but we will support them behind the scenes, maybe sending out a mailer, maybe doing something like that.
Amen. That's what we're trying to do. And in fact, we've been talking about it in our group, is starting a website, getting,
Yes.
locals involved. It's a grassroots movement right here in Frisco, Texas, and we will not stop until we win.
Right. And I don't know how, but Patriot Mobile, they came out of nowhere and they are supporting our 3 candidates. I have no idea who is paying for these flyers that are coming into my mailbox, but Patriot Mobile has been helping here in Keller, South Lake, and GCISD, Grapevine, Colleyville. But having local support is the number one thing that everybody needs to do. Don't worry about other districts. I know Grapevine, Colleyville, they're in their own race right now. I'm in my own race. I have to focus on Keller. They have to focus on Grapevine. Okay, we can't worry about too many things at once. Stay local, stay small. That's all I have to say.
The amazing thing about all of this, when you're talking about staying local, is that we actually can have an impact locally. I'm a huge patriot. I've been very concerned about our nation and followed very closely all of our national happenings with the election being stolen and all of that. And I'm an activist at heart. I am a warrior at heart, and I found it grueling and frustrating those few years where I was following, praying, and I'm very active on Facebook. I'm huge about just raising awareness and teaching. But that's not enough for me. I found release for all of this pent up energy, my pent up activist energy, by being here local, being active. In the private school that I raised my kids in, there's no elected parent representation. It is all self-selecting by the powers that be. So I found it very frustrating. My voice was shut down constantly. Basically, the conservative voice was shut down, and you have no means through which to activate for change. But that's part of the reason why I rejoiced going to the public school system, because I knew I could affect change. I had a voice and a means through which to bring in, conservative board members and activate with other moms, because the other moms at the private school were too afraid to speak because they could get thrown out, honestly. And I pretty much did as well, because I paid the price. I'm happy to do it. I do it all over again. But in a private school setting, you really are limited in your influence because of that. But in the public schools, we can let it rip, and we really can take over the school board and change things. It is extremely gratifying, and then change things for the better for our kids in very real ways.
Absolutely. And you know what? I feel like for the last several years, and I talked about this last week, that for the last couple of years, as conservative parents, or just conservatives in general, a lot of people were very timid, if you will, about talking out, talking openly. That is done. Those days are finished.
Yep.
We have absolutely nothing to be afraid of because we are the majority. We are just silenced
Yes.
by what's happening in this country. And I feel like, again, that's all done by design, but we have to speak up. We have to be loud. We cannot be afraid to be, escorted by a police officer out of a board meeting because quite frankly, they're just doing their job. And a lot of times they're on our side. That's another way, like we just get them in. And we have to get these teachers on our side too. Because I will tell you this, there are a lot of teachers that I have talked to that are not okay with what's happening. However, they are silenced as well. They are, they have their contract, and those contracts are very specific as to what they can and cannot say. And they don't, this is where the whole union thing is good and bad, but they are up against everything. And if they talk out, they know they're going to lose. And a lot of them cannot afford to lose. A lot of them are moms, young people, single moms. So we need to get to these teachers and let them know that we have their back, but we need theirs. We all need to do this together locally.
Summer, I have a testimony to that effect. One of our mama bears was in high school last week, taking some books out, and it had taken her weeks to be given access to get these nasty pornographic books out, but she was there. And if you can picture this, she's like standing at the desk, taking the books out, and the person, I presume it was a librarian on the other side, handed the books over to her. The school employee looked down at the books and looked straight in my friend's eyes, the mama bear's eyes, and said, "Thank you." And she looked back down at the books, looked up at her again, and the mama bear said, "What did you just say?" And she said, "Thank you." And my friend just was stunned, and she said a third time, "Thank you." Looked down at the books, back up at mama bear, and message was clear. We need your help, but we can't say anything or we will be censured and fired. So I took that as a huge encouragement. And I've heard from other friends that are librarians in FISD saying, we don't agree with this stuff, but we can't say anything. So we are out here taking the bullets for the staff, the employees. I bet most of them are not in agreement with any of this.
They're not.
They are silenced.
They
so
are
we
silenced.
will not be silent.
Nope. And here's the thing. I had one who actually, I was hoping that she would be here this week, but she is one of my dearest friends. She actually came on to my podcast and she was exposing the truth about SEL. And she is brave. She's very brave. She is brave for doing this because I know I'm on a hit list and I love it, quite frankly. But I get her perspective and where she's coming from. And I don't think it's fair that these teachers are not allowed to talk about it. It's just like the nurses and the doctors. And again, they are doing this on purpose. They are shutting us up because A, we're telling the truth and it goes completely against their narrative. But if people really knew what was going on, and Allison, I mean, at least where I am specifically in my neighborhood, I'm in a very Indian cultured community, and they are not okay with this, but they don't really know. And so it is our job to be the hands, the feet, the mouth, the backbone for those that, like myself, not that many years ago, just I wasn't paying attention. And now that I am, I have a duty, as do all of us. And so it is a fight.
Can I say something real quick?
No.
Just okay.
And I do, I have to, hold on one second. I do need to apologize to Tex this morning. And I actually sent her a message. I was not trying to be rude. And what's funny is I've been trying to get you, and I won't say her name. Yes. I was like, thank you, Jay. You're the best. So I do apologize. You're amazing. And your work has been just inspirational. You and Kathy. I love it. Love it. Love it. Go ahead, Jay.
That's all right. You need Chad Prather on here. I'll get him. Just kidding.
Yes,
No,
you will.
yeah, I did. Hey, no, what I wanted to say was the key that you said, to having people's back when they're worried about it, is actually getting someone on the board elected to give them their voice, or maybe kind of smooth things over for them, and to where they're able to speak up more, or whatever. And that's what I'm seeing happening across North Texas, because I pay attention to a lot of the news, and that's a big thing. There, like it or not, there's a lot of mayors and state representatives that are actually getting in the middle of this with different areas. And I think they're doing it for political gain. I won't go there right now, but they're seeing that this is an issue that the parents are really, really, really concerned about. So starting locally, like we've been saying for months and months and months, on our Texas Talk Spaces is where change happens. So that's all I want to chime in on.
I I totally agree, but more than I can even say. Um, are you guys okay if we take some hands and some questions? And because I feel like what we need to do is empower parents and to give them resources. And I did just text Jerry. Um, I am actually going to start a Texas Talk website, and all the resources from every single one of our spaces is going to be listed, so parents are empowered and they know what to do, because I feel like a lot of people just don't know where to start. And if we are able to give them all the information that we have, then that's one more person in their neighborhood, their community, that can take power and do something with it. I probably shouldn't have said power. It's a bad word, but they can take control of what's happening and know, and then we can communicate with each other. So I'm going to do that starting tomorrow. But with that said, I am going to let John, I don't even know how to say I'm just
Witness.
Witness. Oh, okay, you got creative with that. Well, go ahead, Witness. Thank you for being here. And then our
Well,
guests
thank you,
will answer your
ladies
questions.
and gentlemen. I apologize on behalf of God. Thank you for all of you mama bears out there who are actually showing more testicular fortitude than most men that I know right now. So on behalf of us who are behind you, thank you. But first and foremost, is this biblical? All of these things that we're witnessing right now, this is biblical. And the Bible says it in Genesis flat out that she will crush his head, because the women are the ones who are going to have to take the battle to the enemy on this one, because they're coming after you more than they're coming after us. They're coming after the women because they know that you guys will protect the cubs. So I have an idea, and I don't know how many people are involved in all of this or what you guys are doing. I just got on here and heard what your topic was, and I'm pretty upset about it myself. I'm in Texas, but I would like to get together with whoever I can to draft a bill to ban the bedroom from the classroom.
Amen.
I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do. Yeah, when have we ever seen this? I mean, I'm 44, I'll be 45 soon. I've never thought that this is what our battle would be, is like trying to keep your sexuality like this out of kindergartners' classrooms. But yet
Amen.
here we are. Here we are.
I don't send my
Honestly,
kids
it's a
to your.
pedophilic spirit, Summer. The
Yeah.
spirit of it is pedophilia. It
So
is
we
Yeah.
have to
really
understand. We have to understand that our contracts bind these spiritual entities as well. So our contracts are what we need, and we need bolts behind those contracts and the people that we place in charge to advocate those contracts and put them in place and sign them as bills. So that's the only way we're going to protect ourselves moving forward from all of this that's happening. And we've seen the border being flooded with new voters who do not believe the same value systems that we believe. So if we're not being keen and being watchful on who we're allowing into those spaces and putting in charge of our affairs, and they are advocating for these things, then we're never going to be able to get out of the situation. So it starts with the contracts. It starts with us, the people being behind the contracts and placing those people in charge to ensure that those contracts get instilled and signed and put into play. So I know everybody's pain and everybody's struggle here, but I want to impress on it. None of this works if we do not put it on paper and get it put into law. So this, I think, is more than anything is the real pushes we need to start focusing on how to gain access to the right people in order to have them sit down with all of the people who are really advocating for this and not just keyboard warriors, but really want to push this forward and move, and then starting to utilize all of our talents to ensure that everybody is aware of really what's going on. And Twitter being open now, True Social and these other platforms like this is a good start. But if we're not putting it out here in our own local communities, then we're not doing any good for anybody, because not a lot of the older people who are really going to advocate and actually fund these people are going to stand up and say, well, this isn't right, and I'm going to withdraw my campaign contributions to these people. Because if you hit them in the pockets, that's where you're going to hit them more than anything.
Can I speak to that, Summer?
Absolutely.
So I totally agree with you. And one thing that we need to be on the alert to on that front is that the authorities are not willing to actually enforce the laws that are on the books today. So we have Penal Code 43.24 in Texas, which prohibits adults from distributing pornography to minors. I took that penal code to, and several other moms did as well, and reported these crimes to the Frisco Police Department. It went to the Criminal Investigations Unit. They took it to the Collin County and the Denton County District Attorneys. And the formal and final word back to all of us was, we refuse to investigate these issues. These are just books. This is your concerns are political in nature. The ISD has a process in place for you to challenge any books that you have a concern about. And we don't have the resources to pursue these issues criminally within the police force or the district attorney's offices. So right there with my local law enforcement, they are unwilling to pursue these matters. And yeah,
I don't,
the ISDs are breaking the law, but
not to cut you off, Miss Allison, it's
Yeah.
not that they're refusing to, it's that they're bound by the actual law in place. So we need to redefine the law itself to ensure that that is where some way they can advocate and actually interfere and intercede on our behalf. Because once they're in violation of the law, then the law has no choice but to involve itself.
They
But
said they're
to
not
their
willing
extent,
to.
there's, because right now it's not declared as an illegal practice on the school's behalf, because the school is declaring that it's okay. So once we get our school board members washed out of there and actually put some people in place who are going to start removing these books, the law can't do anything, because we don't have any laws in place to ensure that the schools cannot get funded if they allow these things in their schools. This is where we have to get together and start drafting the laws
All right,
to
let me
we
jump
want
in real
around what
quick.
we want.
Thank you. It's a good idea.
And I can't speak on this too much, but I know I've talked to Tracy in the past, and she's probably busy right now, but I tried giving her a mic that she and others are trying to form a, I don't know how to say it. I'm going to misrepresent. I don't want to misrepresent her, but more of a family first caucus in Austin in 23. And we're trying to get, like Freedom Caucus and everything else. We're trying to get legislators to jump in with, child gender modification and things of this nature with the libraries also. So there are people that are in the works on trying to get legislators to join in saying we're going to fight for these rights. I mean, what you're saying is absolutely right. You have to get it on the books the right way as a law, so we can, I think the last thing we want to do is just throw a bunch of lawsuits at people, in my opinion. It's just
No, it'll
follow
get
the
drug out
law.
for
Follow
years.
the law. Yeah. And if you have something that needs to be clarified, getting your legislators to do that. And I do think with the noise that's being made the last year, but I think you're going to see a lot of people join with us on this for and again, it's not family first, but it's more of a thing for our children. To be honest with you, parent rights and things like that. But you're right. I think we definitely need to get this together. I mean, you know, in a couple of months in June, we're going to have our RPT convention, in Houston, and I guarantee you that's going to be a priority that comes through
Could you
on
please
the
send me?
ballot.
Could you please send me all the info in my inbox, sir? Because I'm right down the street from Houston. I'm right here, so I would
Well,
more
you
than
have
willing
to
to be
jump.
there.
Yeah, you have to jump through the hoops to get there. You got to go through your Senate district and all that stuff with your Republican Party, but you can't just show up. But anyway, I do think that will be a priority somewhat. Adding to our planks, and there's people in our circles that we can talk to about that and get information out for you on that. But it's definitely going to be something that I do think there's been enough. Here's the problem, though. Okay, we had 8 major Republican priorities this last session, and we really got 2 passed. And we have a Republican legislature controls everything, controls the House, the Senate, and the governor, and it's going to be a daily grind to get something passed through our state, and because we keep freaking electing the same piece of shits is what we're doing, and
Amen.
they keep going in there and they keep lying and they keep getting paid. They have all this money and their name recognition is getting them elected, and people are ignorant. So yeah, it's going to be a process, but I definitely wanted to bring that to the table as far as the law goes. It's gonna we got to get some people, not just one representative, not just one senator. We got to get
It's
people
collective caucus,
fighting
right?
for us.
Coalition.
Well, and here's the thing too. I mean, we have targets on our backs and it's hard. I mean, especially
Yes.
for parents that have kids in high school. These kids become targets not just by other students but by the administration, and that's where we have to there has to be things that we do, collectively, to protect not only ourselves but our children, because I don't think people realize, being very outspoken and, it's a hard, it's very hard, it's a thin line nowadays, with regards to our children and what happens to them. But what's also very important is that, we talk to each other, to our neighbors, to those, even, I don't know, not just our friends, but our neighbors, the people that we don't really know, and ask them, those that have kids in these school districts, because I did that not too long ago. And the person I was talking to didn't believe me, but then I got a text message saying, oh my gosh, you were totally right." I'm like, "Of course, I wouldn't just tell you this shit for no reason." So we have to be bold in how we are with these situations, because like Allison said, is this is a really big fight. And taking on this school district and these boards, they're dirty. And I know
This is the hill
Allison.
to die on.
Well, yes, and that's the thing, is that you were right when you said that, is, there's a lot of people that talk a big game behind our phones and our laptops. But then when we actually go out there, because there are several of us that have put it in writing that this is our hill, and this is my hill, my children, and most of you guys know me in here. My dad is a convicted pedophile. He was in jail for 20 years. So this is very, very close to my heart, and it is a very big topic for me, and I am not ashamed any longer to be very open and honest about why I am fighting for what I'm fighting for. It's not just because I want to argue with people. No, I live this life. I know what happens. It's disgusting. And the fact that they are trying to make pedophiles look like they are just, you know, everyday
Maps.
people, maps. Yeah, good old maps. No, they are not. They are disgusting human beings. And
Miss
they,
Summer.
Well, let me say something real quick because I think a lot of people forget this. Because anyway, I think a lot of people who are whether it's on the board or whether it's a supervisor, superintendent, whatever. I think deep down they're not bad people. I think deep down they're not nasty. I just think it's too much of a shot of pride to their pride to be pointed out as being wrong, and they try to sweep it under the rug or throw something at it, or here's this committee, and then they can't get the books off the committee like Keller for a little while. I know they couldn't. They had a committee, but they were passing all the books, and the parent that was on here earlier was like, no, we're not stopping here because you guys have to admit you're wrong in this. I think that's a big problem. Is a lot of people have egos, and at least in these larger towns, they run on these boards and different committees to keep moving around in the city. I mean, the smaller cities, I don't know. Maybe they're, I don't know, but I seem to think like it's kind of a stepping stone for some people, or it's a prestige thing for some people. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone specifically, but I think they have such an arrogance about them sometimes that they just, well, let's just get these other people elected and they'll be yes man and put their stamp of approval on it, and we'll be done with these crazies. That's what how I've seen some of it.
I agree.
It
I
was really
believe
surprising to me to see the responses from the board, the mayor, some folks on the city council, to our concerns as mama bears, that our concerns are political. Even the PD. I keep hearing the same refrain. Stop. They're telling us to stop playing politics, that we made this a political issue and we're taking this on because of our politics. I
Yeah.
don't know how to even.
that's disgusting.
It is. It is disgusting. This
That is
politics.
absolutely wow.
It's never
Well,
entered my mind. These are my children.
Okay.
There are kids
when
in
It's
school.
theirs too.
Yeah, exactly. It does not make sense. That's why I call it a delusion.
Well, and
This is what
It's
I
like,
can't
wake
understand
up,
about any of
snap
it.
out of it.
well,
I
and
can't
I
understand
also,
any of this because all of these people are sitting here like literally either they're advocating for it or they're turning a blind eye and saying it doesn't exist.
Yep.
Or they're sitting here telling you it's political because you're only doing this. It's like it's a trend or something. It's a fad. No, we've always been this way. We've just actually been amplified now.
And
well,
from a
well,
biblical
and a lot.
perspective, this is a depravity is very progressive. It
Yep.
doesn't stop with light level of depravity. It progresses because the brain. I'm not a neuropsychologist, but I do know enough to know that when with addiction, for example, the brain needs greater and greater stimuli to get the same level of high. That's what happens with sexual depravity. So one thing leads to another, and then in one of the Frisco high schools, like I said earlier, there is a fur animal club where the members of the club identify as werewolves, and they wear fur costumes to school every day because they genetically identify as werewolves. And then they go into the bathrooms, they give each other oral sex wearing their werewolf suits, etc., etc. It is that it's
What
getting
is
more and more bizarre.
what the hell is influencing these children to do or to even think or
Exactly.
even come up with this shit?
Well, I'll
Exactly.
tell you.
That
I will tell you, and I think Dan can tell you probably the best that it has been the ideology of the left. They to be so pure, holy, and innocent is actually quite the opposite. And I
it
think that
never
also
was.
Never.
it never. Well, it wasn't. Well, it was in certain ways, but
That's that controlled opposition. They give you just enough to give you credibility,
That's
but
right.
in the meantime, they're
Think about Vin
manipulating and
Diesel.
forcing it on you.
So here's another thing that we also always need to take into consideration is now we have social media, we have phones, we have computers, we have iPads, we have all the things right in front of us all the time. And
Weapons of mass destruction.
yes, but I will tell you this, that, you know, I remember that my dad always had Barely Legal magazines before he went to prison. And so basically it's, girls who are 17 and under. And now it's all like on a phone for them. And you literally see it all over Twitter. I mean, there is nothing that is stopping this. The only thing that is going to stop this is us.
That's
Is
right.
you, me, and everybody in this room who isn't a troll that is like, this is not okay. Because at the end of the day, this is not politics. It's definitely never been politics for me.
It's evil.
Well, we were warned about this in the Bible, and we're
Amen.
looking through it. However, we have just, for whatever reason, and I only say this because I was on the left, is that I always looked at the Republicans as being incredibly weak. They talk a big game, but nothing ever happened. Well, now you have former leftists, myself and many others, that are now on the other side. I am not afraid. I don't care at this point. Like, honestly, I don't give two shits what anybody thinks about me. All I care about is that I am at the end of the day on the right side of history, literally on the right side of history, that I am standing up for my 4 daughters, and they know that their mom is not okay with them being sexualized, that they are confused, that it is okay for them to think that they're a werewolf. This is not okay, but our public schools have way, way, way too much freedom. And we have to stop that. At the end of the day, that is it. That is our job, and that is what we're doing. And with that, go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I just wanted to point something up in the nest that I put up there earlier, is how these books make it into the schools. And I know the Texans like a subscription, but I think you get some free views or something like that. Um, but it kind of, and I thought I was going to get the guy who he said he was going to try to make it to the space, but he didn't make it. That wrote that, and it kind of tells you the process of how it goes. But in the end, as we know, the TEA, makes a recommendation. The State Board of Education makes their recommendation on curriculum and all this. But in the end, it's on the school districts. And I just wanted to say that I don't know in other states how it works, but at least in Texas, we do vote for our State Board of Education. And I know my representatives knew, because the one that was there was in education for 40 years and then was on the state boards. And the way I saw it and the way people in my small circle saw it was, this is on their watch. So we don't care who this person is no more. What they've done in the past is on their watch that this happened. So we've got to vote someone else in. And that person didn't have any political experience, and it was another former teacher, but we got them in. And so that's one way of going about change. I want to keep going back to locally, that there are people who have to answer for this. And one more thing, and it's probably the biggest thing, we're racking our brains, but we shouldn't be, because it's all about the money. You know, the schools pay to be part of certain institutions and accreditations, and Texas is recommending, even like our lieutenant governor has, to break away from certain institutions, and they won't, and different, and hopefully we can get enough people educated on the money, because everybody knows that's what makes change in America is money. And you look at the teacher unions, what they did in California with Biden. I mean, they had them twisted up out there. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention, of the state board of education also plays a big part. what we're talking about tonight. Thanks.
Yes, they do. All right, go ahead, Dan, and then Lou.
Okay, someone was talking before about that school district, that school principal. I think it was Rick McDaniel, Superintendent McKinney, and how you can't believe that he said, you guys are all fueled by political agendas, sensationalism, and exaggeration.
That was Waldrop in Frisco.
Okay.
Yep, he's
Well,
ours.
Let me give you an example of what's going on here. This is the American Library Association speaking through him. This is what they've been saying for decades. They say the same things. They say it's the conservatives. They say they want to protect their children and they can't. And what they don't say is they never address the issue. So this guy, the American Library Association gets these people and convinces them that, this is the way it is. It's the First Amendment and everything. There's ways of doing it. I won't get into the details. But here he is saying exactly what the American Library Association would say. For years, the American Library Association says the exact same thing. Even as recently as a few weeks ago, when they came out with their State of the Libraries report, for genderqueer and for Law and Boyd, all the like, they blamed conservatives and they never addressed anything substantive about why those books are being given to kids in the first place. They don't address it. So they've sort of learned how to handle over the course of time, how to shut people up and bully them down. That's what's going on here. He's following their script, and as a result, your kids are getting screwed over. And one more thing, and that is, they say, well, if there's one kid that's going to get helped by us giving them this, then they all have to have it. Well, this is another one of their double standards, because when it comes to banning books, they always say you can't ban books because one parent complains. They say that all the time. Banned Books Week is based on that. They attack people constantly on that basis. You can't take a book out because one parent complained. But when it comes to the kids getting child pornography, why then if even one kid needs this child pornography, why then we must have to have it, because we don't want to hurt children, or we don't want them to think there's something wrong if we remove the book from the library.
Hey, Dan, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Why isn't there a Christianity section in our schools then? Why can't our kids check out Bibles or different books that are related?
Well, as you know, the Supreme Court just released a case today that said that a Christian group, which was not allowed to fly a Christian flag in front of in Boston, the Christian group just won, and they just said the Boston took away their First Amendment rights. So maybe things are going to change. But these people, I just listened to the former head of the Office for Intellectual Freedom at the American Library Association state for every book that a parent brings in and reads a few excerpts at a school board meeting, I could bring in a Bible and read a few excerpts from the Bible.
Maybe we should bring in Song of Solomon, because that pretty much is like biblical porn. They might like it though, and then maybe that's how we get these Bibles and Christianity back into our schools.
Sorry.
These people are wild.
I like how you think, Summer.
Well, Allison, I know that you have to wrap up in 9 minutes, so I'm going to give you the floor for now, and then we'll go to you, Lou, if you don't mind. And again, thank you guys for being here. I know that there's a ton of other amazing spaces going on, especially with, what came out tonight about the Supreme Court and a ton of stuff. So, Allison, go ahead. Give us your final words.
Thank you so much, Summer. This has been exhilarating and so empowering just to see how many people do we have on.
I love it.
I'm so grateful. My first point is, let's keep the main things the main thing. Our children's sexuality is absolutely none of their business. It is not their domain, never was, never will be. It is none of their business. It's pedophilic. It is a pedophilic spirit that would deem it their place of authority, that they can come in and intrude on the sexuality of our children. This is sacred space between a parent and a child, period, end of story. And the second is that what we're looking at here is parental alienation. The school systems, ultimately, it's Marxism that's trying to alienate parents from their children and usurp parental authority over their children. So we must vociferously stand against that with all of our might. It is not open for debate. This is a hill, yes, that we will die on. You may not get between me and my children. And, you know, looking down the line to my next generation, my boys are late teens. So, you know, I'll probably be a grandma within, who knows, 5 to 8 years. My grandchildren are not going into the public school system until all of this is cleaned up. Nothing and no one is going to come between me, my sons, their wives, and their children, my grandchildren. They belong to our family unit, and I will protect them from every wolf that tries to get at them. I will not farm our children out to the public school systems so long as they're in this state. So we've got to fight for parental rights to be returned.
Amen, 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 amen. And you are right. This is the Marxism Agenda 101. If you go and you read about it, it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And it's just crazy to think that here we are. And what was his name? Dr. Kendi? He was just here in
Yes,
Texas.
that's right.
I do find it
Ibram Kendi.
interesting in a library. And that goes back to what Dan was saying. And it all is starting to come full circle. And I wrote a lot of notes, Dan, so I'm excited to go down some rabbit holes tomorrow and to learn about some of the people you mentioned and what's happening. But Allison,
Summer,
thank you.
if I could present one more image for everyone to take
course.
away. We've all seen Lord of the Rings. We all know Gandalf. So the most powerful scene in that movie for me is where Gandalf is on the bridge fighting the serpent or dragon or whatever it is. And he takes his sword and he bangs it down on the bridge and he says, "You shall not pass," at the top of his lungs. That's our warrior cry. You shall not touch our children. Get back in Jesus' name. We disallowed you. You have no authority here. Take your hands off our children.
And I'm going to say this, even for people that aren't religious, get behind the fact that we are saying, get your hands off our children.
That's
I
right.
mean, this is for everybody. I don't care what race, religion, what gender these days. I don't care how you identify. I care about the fact that these are innocent, vulnerable lives that are being affected forever. And if we don't stand in the gap for them, then we are to blame. And that is not okay with me because, like I said earlier, I live this life. And when adults don't stand in the gap, kids are hurt, and that is not okay. And it's not going to happen, at least on my hill. Like I'm over, offending people, because the only person I'm hurting is that innocent child, and we cannot do it. And I sound like an infomercial. I need Sarah McLachlan behind me with her music and a dog in the corner, but here we are. So Allison, thank you for being here, and I can't wait to go have our coffee soon.
You're a rock star, Summer, and
So
I
Hey.
appreciate you so much.
Hey,
she's back. I'm so glad. This time
I'm so glad. I'm sorry. I had a
Don't
little bit of,
apologize.
okay. I had a little bit of breaking news happen while we were doing our chat. And I have posted on Twitter the new challenge that is going on here in Keller about the book Tricks. And it is talking about anal sex and the pressure that happens with anal sex. So I posted a video that we just found. I have a great group of moms here in Keller that are constantly checking it. It is on our Follett library, on our K Cloud, which is our, how would I say it? Like our backpack for the district. So sorry I left. I was dealing with that. Everybody check it out and retweet and get this out.
What is
Yeah,
the what is
her,
the
please.
nature of the challenge?
I put it in the nest. If that was a video, I put it in the nest.
Yeah.
I'm watching a video. This is horrible.